Kerbal receives signals from new satellite. The KSA continues to complete more complicated feats as they launched Kerbal's first communication satellite. All of Kerbal gazes and listens to the sky as they try to catch a glimpse of this new modern marvel of technology. Though it may prove difficult to some Kerbals since the satellite seems to miraculously hover almost 3,000 kilometers up above the Kerbal Space Center, the fact is, it does provide a permanent communication channel with the surface. This is the first to come of many more communication satellite links to the cosmos, as the KSA plans to reach further and further out into space. Kerbal ingenuity is truly breaking the bounds of Kerbal and soaring to the heavens.
Hello everyone, this is Shimmy, and I am back with some more Kerbal Space Program, working on my Sandbox Space campaign. And today, this is going to be a post-commentary of a set of missions that I did in order to set up a constellation of communication satellites. So right now, you'll just see me working on my launcher vehicle that will launch the multiple satellites, messing around with some custom parts, modded parts. I believe the KW rocketry pack, maybe even the Nova Punch pack, and I believe I put in some procedural fairings in there. Yes, as you can see that right there. So what I'm doing right now, I am just going to be doing some flight testing. It does still cost me money, but it's only 3% of the total cost of the rocket, what it usually is. So I'm just making sure to see if this launch vehicle will work for me. When you're in flight testing mode, you can't do any or achieve any goals, but it is useful for testing out your vehicle. You know, if you believe you should have a penalty for testing, which I think it should work out. It should be like that. That's what I'll do. So at this point, I decided that vehicle that you just saw a moment ago wasn't good enough. So I decided to change this up, have more vanilla setup. I have the procedural fairings on there also. You know, that doesn't really do anything other than make it look nice. I don't have like the Ferrum Aerospace pack or anything to really make a difference, but I figure, hey, might as well make my my rocket look kind of cool. So I went ahead and put that on here. So I believe at this point I am doing another launch, but this is a paid-for launch. This is not a flight test. I switched it back to hardcore mode, and that's what this launch is doing. So basically the plan was, I launch these satellites up, I get them into similar orbits as my last mission, into geostationary orbit, but on different parts of Kerbal. In, different degrees or different phases, I guess is how you could explain it. So as you can see here, I was recording, and you can definitely hear my disappointment. I had a huge mission failure here. The decoupling stacks collided with the center stack and completely messed up my rocket. So this entire mission cost me around 50,000 krones, and yeah, I was not expecting that. I was really disappointed. So here, I believe, is another flight test, just to make sure that it actually works. I have this all sped up at different speeds. The design process I set to 20 times, since, that actually takes me a while. And he's launched at least 4, because, there's only so many launches that you can watch before you get bored of them. But I added separatrons to this one, as you can see, when it decouples perfectly fine. So at this point, I think I decide this is good enough. I think I might just make sure that I have enough delta V at this point. Yeah, let's see what I do. I'm sorry, I recorded this a few days ago. Let's see. Yep, I'm just testing this out. I'm happy with that. I will go ahead and make sure everything's okay. And I switch it back from flight testing to hardcore mode. And then I go ahead and launch. And this is going to be a live launch. More money for me to pay. You can see my current budget at 26. I launch, now at negative 28,470 something crowns. So, what that means, I am now in the red. In Mission Controller, there is really no penalty other than you get a 25% cut taken out of your payouts for missions when you complete them. But other than that, there's no real penalty for going in the red. What I've personally decided was that I am not going to be doing any man missions while I'm in the red. So that's my main goal, is to stay in the green, have enough money to pay for those man missions without going into the red. That's just a personal limitation that I've set up here. I don't know how realistic that is. I mean, really, NASA and other space organizations, they get funding, and even if they fail, they still get more funding anyway. So it's a cost plus sort of system. But that's not how I'm playing here. It's played more commercially, I guess. Get paid for these things. So at this point, I am setting up my flight plan. It's gonna basically work very similar to what I did with the previous episode. I am setting it up so I launch into a geostationary transfer orbit, and at that point I will be launching off each of those satellites with the dishes on them separately, because they have their own engines and fuel for them to complete the circularization. And as you can see there, I have the communication network bouncing satellites, bouncing signal off of satellites there. So it works only part of the time. Once I'm done with this, it's going to work way more reliably. So it's very convenient, bouncing signals off the polar satellite there. I believe my mission failure one for the polar is still in orbit, but that will be deorbiting soon. So I believe at this point I decouple my first satellite off of the stack here, and I circularize this. These satellites definitely have enough fuel to circularize, and then some. So that's pretty much what I do here, and for the rest of it, I do something a little bit more complicated. Let's see. Yes, I'm just making sure the orbital period is set to around 6 hours, and I switch to the other satellite. So at this point, I use a trick that Scott Manley showed in one of those videos maybe a couple months ago. I set this entire vehicle's orbit into a resonant orbit around Kerbal, at around like 4.5 hours, I believe. And that turns out to be 90 degrees. Every single time it orbits, it changes 90 degrees around the planet. So at that point, all I need to do is just wait out a couple orbits here, and then I can launch the rest of the satellites. So I have 4 different satellites in a constellation, so they're all communicating with each other. You see here, I don't have any signal, which is kind of a bummer. So I have to go ahead and pass around a couple more times. Excuse me. And then at this point, I go ahead and launch my second satellite in this constellation. Go ahead and circularize. Make sure the period is around 6 hours, so it stays relatively in the same position. And I do the same thing one more time. Need to go ahead and wait for it to phase. At this point, as you can see, it's not perfectly 90 degrees. I think that's just related to just how everything worked out with how the first satellite was launched, and I didn't get it perfectly timed. But I say, hey, as long as they're all communicating with each other, that's perfectly fine with me. And if they're not moving relatively far in the orbit, then, that's perfectly fine. So at this point, I go ahead and go to each satellite, and I make sure that the orbital periods are roughly similar, and I then start going into the mission controller program, and then I start getting the payouts for these. So I do go above the green, and I believe at the end of this I end up with like 30,000. Yeah, 31,000. 31,000 crones. That definitely is a lot less than what I started with, but hey, I'm still in the green. I'm going to have to push off my manned missions until later, but at this point I should be able to continue with my robotic probes, and I will be sending some more probes out to Moon and Minimus, and I believe they should be fairly profitable, considering robotic missions can be, multiple missions can be done per probe, and that should be what I'll be doing next. So anyway, I think that wraps it all up. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode, and once again, my name is Shimmy, and I'll see you next time.